Bleach meets Naruto, the mad scientist who revolutionized shinobi warfare. Please like, share and subscribe.
Episode 96, The Ghost Country Seeks Help, a Weak Ghost.
The so-called authority is actually the concept of God.
Nara's mouth curled up, revealing a happy smile, but Hōgyoku has not become a god, he is the son of the Soul King, and can only be considered a demigod. His attributes have not yet been sublimated into concepts. So, all things, can simulate the force of star episodes. He did it as soon as he said it. Nara's eyes closed, and a clear light shone on his body. He stretched out a hand. On his hand, a touch of black floated and changed rapidly. His all things concept can simulate, learn, and change all the moves he has seen or heard of.
Below the god level, 100% simulation.
At the same god level, it can simulate 60% to 80%.
Gods with priesthood can simulate 40%.
It is not clear for the gods at the next level, but at least they can be simulated. This means that as long as Nara is given time to condense his own concepts into a divine position, he will sooner or later reach the indescribable state of one is all is one.
Swish.
After a while, the black color in Nara's hand changed and condensed into a cross star, which was a strange badge with a ring.
Star marked. Nara's thought moved.
The badge merged into the back of his hand, forming a brand tattoo.
Am I starting the tattoo era in advance? Nara looked at the brand and complained. But no one understood this joke. Nara shook his head and continued to think, muttering.
Star marked can be regarded as taking away the Shinigami's Bankai. I can also be regarded as taking away other people's attributes and concepts. The Shinigami's Bankai can directly correspond to the exclusive power of the Hokage world. That is, the power of the tailed beast-level immortal species.
Speaking of this,
Nara's eyes fell on the piled hills in front of him.
It seems that I have to go to the ninja world.
In myths and legends, different countries have given birth to different gods.
Although these gods have disappeared, they have left some things behind.
For example, the Fire Temple left behind a special talent of the immortal race practice method, which can use natural energy to fight. And natural energy is very difficult to practice. The Fire Temple should have inherited something that can assist monks in their practice. Those things are Nara's goal. There are also the Shinigami masks in the Uzumaki clan shrine, the Yin-Yang master in Kyoto, the Kingdom of Fire, the real waterfall where Naruto faced his inner demons, the paradise box in the Kingdom of Grass, the ancient famous sword Kusanagi sword, etc. These are all worth exploring. To seize the ancient power left by these items is equivalent to usurping the accumulation of a god, turning his path into the nourishment for my promotion.
Nara nodded and prepared to set off tomorrow.
Of course, he would leave compensation for what he took away.
In today's era, the first path to the gods has been cut off.
Holding on to those ancient things, you will only be abandoned by the world step by step and become the dust of history. Just thinking about it, Nara Shintaku suddenly had an idea.
Orochimaru is looking for me?
He sensed the shouts coming from afar. This is the remote sensing heaven and earth of the gods. Orochimaru touched Nara Shintaku's symbolic things and simulated the way believers prayed to convey information to him. Nara Shintaku had no believers, so he transformed prayer into a means of communication. Here, pay tribute to a certain group leader.
Whoosh!
Nara Shintaku turned into a clear light, and the clear light turned and disappeared.
Hokage office. Fourth Hokage Orochimaru, staring at a report in his hand, muttered, "The demons of the land of demons?" What?
A flash of light appeared, and Nara Shintaku's figure naturally took the report in Orochimaru's hand.
A simple glance.
This detailed report of tens of thousands of words was absurd.
Ask for help from the witch of the land of demons? Nara Shintaku laughed dumbly. It's true that if you mention the devil, he will appear.
He really wanted to find some relics of gods, or weak gods, hidden in the west area of the temple.
Now a god has come to his door. You are really interested.
Orochimaru said with a smile, this demon, in the legend of the land of demons, is an evil thing that can revive the dead and blaspheme the dead.
But I think the historical legend of the land of demons is more like a ghost than an evil thing. I guess you will be interested in things related to gods, so I specially inform you. Orochimaru was right, he was indeed interested. I'll take this S-rank mission by the way. Nara said.
Okay, then I'll write back to the land of demons and tell them that they've sent out ninjas.
Orochimaru nodded. After recording the mission situation, Nara left and headed for the land of demons. The land of demons.
It's located in the southwest of the Land of Fire. This country is a theocracy, with women holding the highest power, and the throne is passed down from generation to generation, and there is a strange power flowing in the veins.
It can foresee disasters and the death of someone. And once the Shrine Maiden foresees it, the death or disaster will inevitably happen.
Unless the Shrine Maiden is killed, the predicted scene will disappear. In the original work, the next generation of Shrine Maiden Cheyenne predicted the scene of Naruto being disemboweled. But the plot, or fate, played a joke. The one who was ripped open was just Naruto's shadow clone. Nara was walking on a stone staircase leading up the mountain. There were many people around him, but no one could see him or touch him. Everyone who approached Nara subconsciously avoided him. A vacuum zone was formed around Nara. And the people who avoided him were unaware of their actions, as if they were walking normally in their sight.
Blinding the senses is just a trick for me. Nara climbed the stairs and came to the shrine on the top of the mountain.
The shrine is majestic and occupies the entire mountain, as if it grew out of the Yamanaka, and there is no trace of man-made.
Also a shrine? Nara entered the shrine and went directly into the restricted inner area.
The guarding samurai ignored him. Or rather, in the eyes of the samurai, Nara did not exist at all. The current ghost country has forgotten the origin of Osawa Shrine, and even more forgotten which god the shrine worships.
The throne is vacant.
Only the tradition of the Shrine Maiden in power has been passed down. Nara strolled around the shrine and admired the buildings, murals, and sculptures inside. It was as if he had crossed time. He saw that this god still existed thousands of years ago and was very popular.
Has it completely disappeared? Nara walked to the core area of the shrine, which was a shrine.
It was also empty inside.
It's completely clean, without a trace of power left. Nara Shintaku sighed regretfully.
The owner of this shrine was completely dead.
But that's right.
If they hadn't died out, they would have returned thousands of years ago relying on the faith of the land of ghosts.
Why is the throne still vacant? Nara Shintaku shook his head. He walked to the side of the shrine and opened the historical materials stored in the shrine. These historical materials record the ancient history of the shrine. But because the gods disappeared and the times changed, the materials became incomplete and chaotic, and the timeline could not be distinguished at all. The people in the shrine, even the shrine maidens, do not think that the above records are true. Because some of the content is too exaggerated and unreasonable. So,
they regarded it as an ancient legend of the shrine and stored it here.
Are they related to the gods in the field of death? Nara Shintaku flipped through it with interest. He was not in a hurry to deal with the matter of the demons. According to the timeline, now is the previous generation in the main story.
Miroku, the shrine maiden, successfully sealed the demons and calmed the disaster.
And in the next generation, an ambitious man named Huangquan unsealed the demons and released the demons.
Miroku's daughter Cheyenne, with the help of Naruto, resealed the demons and solved the disaster.
In other words, even if there was no Nara Shintaku, according to the inertia of history, Miroku, the shrine maiden, could successfully seal the demons. It's just a little strange.
Nara Shintaku touched his chin and flipped through the historical materials page by page. Why does the shrine maiden have the power to seal the demons?
The demons are ghosts and gods.
According to my observation before I came up, the demons should be at the level of a god.
A god is also a god. Can a mortal seal a god? Isn't this funny? Besides, the ability of the shrine maiden is too targeted at demons, isn't it?
Nara Shintaku was puzzled and murmured, there must be something wrong here.
At the same time,
in the palace of the shrine maiden on the highest floor of the shrine, a woman with light blonde hair and wearing a loose robe was flipping through the documents on the table. She had regular facial features, a gentle temperament, and was gentle and demure. She didn't look like a person in power at all.
Lord Miroku. A guard came running with a letter, Songyi replied. Really? Miroku looked up in surprise, took the letter, and couldn't wait to open it. But after a few glances, Miroku's expression dimmed and became disappointed.
Lord Miroku, did Konoha reject our mission commission? Asked the maid next to him.
No, Konoha agreed. Miroku shook his head slightly inside. Their fourth Hokage said that they have sent powerful ninjas to the land of demons.
Why? The waitress was puzzled.
Konoha has agreed. Why is Lord Miroku still sighing? This letter was sent 3 days ago. Miroku smiled bitterly. The waitress was stunned. 3 days ago?
Instantly, everyone present showed a dejected expression.
3 days is not enough.
It will take at least 10 days from Konoha to the land of demons. The undead army of the demons has already fought 10 kilometers away.
Yes, when the Konoha shinobi arrives, I'm afraid we will all be dead. They all understood. 3 days is not enough for Ye's ninja support to arrive.
If they want to wait for support, they have to hold on alone for at least 7 days.
But this is impossible.
The most outstanding warrior of the Demon Kingdom's swordsmanship died at the hands of the undead army a month ago. Mortals with flesh and blood can't fight against the immortal ghosts. Seeing the low atmosphere, Mithraea was about to say something encouraging.
Day.
Suddenly, a hurried sound of footsteps was heard.
Lord Mithraea, it's not good.
A guard ran in anxiously, sweating profusely, and said fearfully, "The undead army of the demons has appeared 1 kilometer away."
What?
Everyone in the palace changed their faces.
Wasn't it 10 kilometers away last night? Why is it only 1 kilometer away today?
Yes, it will take at least 2 days for the demons to get here.
Don't talk nonsense.
They pretended to be angry, but they were all timid. In fact, they were already scared because of the arrival of the demons.
Go out and have a look. Miroku was the calmest one.
He put down the letter from Konoha and walked out. Others hurried to catch up. At this point, they can only hope for the power of the shrine made in Miroku.
1 kilometer away from the Osawa shrine, a kind of earthen figurine, holding a weapon, marched forward like a living person. Dawn! Dawn! Dawn!
Thousands of earthen figurines marched in uniform steps, marching day by day. Every step he took shook the ground. Trees collapsed and houses collapsed along the way.
The undead army of demons is coming. Lord Mithraea! Lord Mithraea! Hurry up and save us! Countless villagers fled in all directions.
They didn't notice that the clay figurines didn't care about them at all, nor did they stop to chase them.
They just ignored them and went straight to the shrine.
Among the clay figurines, there was a purple-black monster with countless tentacles. People in the land of ghosts probably don't know that the closer to the shrine, the stronger my power will be. The monster opened an eye between the tentacles and looked at the Osawa shrine, with a flash of nostalgia in his eyes. You've been dead for 1,000 years, but the barrier you left behind is still effective.
The monster is Chi-Mei. He obviously has a special relationship with the Osawa shrine. The closer to the shrine, the stronger the power. So much so that the people in the shrine made a wrong estimate.
It was 10 kilometers away yesterday, but it was only 1 kilometer away today.
Now, I probably have 1% of the power of my heyday. Chi-Mei's eyes flickered.
He looked around, squinting his eyes to find something. After a moment, Chi-Mei looked back with some doubt. Even if it's only 1% of the power, it's enough to protect myself in the current world. The tailed beast that the monster turned into is not my opponent.
But why, the closer I get to the shrine, the more palpitations I feel? Chi-Mei couldn't figure it out.
But now that he had come here, he couldn't stop.
Chi-Mei gave the order without hesitation, shouting, "Flatten the Osawa shrine on the mountain."
Swish, swish, swish. The earthenware figurines raised their weapons one after another, and rushed towards the Osawa shrine like a train.
Go back, monster!
The guards of the Ghost Kingdom blocked the way with their bodies.
I won't allow you to defile the shrine. Ma De Zhao, get out of here. If you want to go over, step over my body first.
The guards drew their samurai swords and faced the king figurines fearlessly. There was no fluctuation in Chi-Mei's eyes. Although he would not take the initiative to kill, he would not show mercy to those who blocked him.
Puff, puff, puff.
The earthenware figurines rushed up without slowing down, accompanied by a series of muffled sounds of piercing flesh. The weapons in their hands fiercely pierced through the light armor of the guards and pierced the guards' bodies.
Bang, bang, bang.
The guards swung their swords to fight back, and the blades fell on the earthenware figurines, but the blades were shattered.
Why are you so strong? Go to hell, monster.
The guards' eyes were red, and they chopped wildly. But in the face of the huge gap in power, it was meaningless.
Puff, puff, puff.
The earthenware figurines were like entering an empty space, tearing open a bloody road.
The weapons pointed directly at the Osawa shrine. In the shrine,
Mithraea stood on the outer corridor of the palace, looking at this scene, and her breathing almost stopped.
Around her,
a group of guards and maids were silent. They dared not breathe. They were all shocked by the brutal attack of the earthenware figurines.
Many people began to tremble. There is no way. Maitreya took a deep breath and said with a firm look in his eyes, "Let the guards retreat, they are no match for the earthenware figurines." Lord Miroku? Everyone looked at her in confusion. "Let the demon in and lead it to the shrine deep inside the shrine. I will seal it there." Miroku's face was firm, and he said in a deep voice, "I may not succeed, so you hurry up and take the people to escape. Escape as far as you can. Wait until the ninjas of Konoha arrive and tell them everything." Miroku turned and walked through the crowd. Walked towards the shrine deep inside the shrine. "Lord Miroku, I'll go with you." A guard clenched his weapon and followed with a tragic look, "Please allow me to guard you until the last moment." "Add me." "Lord Miroku, let me follow you to death." Many guards and maids chose to follow. Episode 97, Nara Shintaku takes action, the demon's weakness. They will be buried together. Everyone, thank you very much. Maitreya was moved, and bowed deeply to those who were willing to follow her. Then, with these people, they hurried to the shrine inside the shrine. Outside the shrine. Shime's eyes moved, as if he felt something. "Are you ready for the final battlefield?" "Very good. Then it's time for me to enter the field." Shime's tentacles suddenly contracted and the springs ejected. Whoosh! His whole body flew out like a cannonball. Bang bang bang! He broke through more than 10 walls in a row and rushed into the shrine. The palace shook because of this. Not good. Maitreya's face changed slightly. She was going downstairs and had not had time to enter the shrine. "Be careful, Lord Maitreya." A warrior drew his sword and blocked in front. Bang! The outer wall of the palace was smashed through, and a piece of rubble flew over. Ha! The warrior shouted, veins bulging, and swung his sword to slash at the gravel. Bang! The gravel stopped after being chopped. But the warrior was not feeling well either, his hands were torn at the knuckles, and his chest was stuffy and churning. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Go! Maitreya made a prompt decision, asked someone to help the warrior up, and jumped down the stairs himself. The others followed in awe. No longer taking the stairs, they jumped over the railings. Bang! 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 The palace shook, and the outer wall soon broke. More than a dozen purple-black tentacles climbed in, exuding a deep and profound breath. "I found you, Maitreya." The demon squeezed in, and its huge eyes instantly locked onto the fleeing figure in front. Swish! His tentacles grabbed the gravel and passed through. More than a dozen gravels whistled through the air and fell like cannonballs. Ah! Get out of the way. Lord Maitreya, run. Half of the people following Maitreya were instantly crushed to death. The rest of the people protected Maitreya and ran into the Taoist officials behind the palace. Hurry, hurry, hurry. The demon is behind us. If we can't enter the ancestral hall, we will all die. Maitreya led the remaining followers and quickly crossed the alley. Everyone used all their strength. One by one, they were panting and running so hard that their lungs were about to explode. But everyone gritted their teeth and persisted. Finally, when they were close to the limit, they saw the entrance to the ancestral hall. Great! A maid just smiled. Bang! A purple-black tentacle penetrated the skyguard plate and fell down, like a pillar, inserted into the entrance of the ancestral hall. Everyone's expression froze instantly. Why don't you run? The body of the demon slowly appeared from the ceiling. Maitreya and others felt cold all over, as if falling into an ice cave. Desperate 997. They were caught up by the demon before they could enter the ancestral hall. Ah, Maitreya, you. The demon smiled and looked at the witch in the crowd. Just as he was about to say something, his voice suddenly stopped. The demon turned his head sharply and looked inside the ancestral hall. Maitreya and others didn't understand, and subconsciously, they also looked over. The eyes of both sides gathered together inside the ancestral hall. Inside the shrine, an oil lamp was lit. A young man in a green vest was sitting next to an empty temple, looking through the historical materials in the shrine. This quiet reading posture seemed as if the young man was the owner of the place. The shrine maidens and demons outside became outsiders. Ninjas from Konoha. Miroku saw the young man and showed a surprised expression. You arrived so soon? The guards and maids around her. Seeing Nara Shintaku's dress, they were also happy. Great, Konoha's support has arrived. The enemy is this demon. Be careful, it's very powerful and can easily destroy the palace. Yes, it can also revive the dead and turn them into immortal monsters. A group of people said, looking at the demons in the arena. But the strange thing is, the demon's eyes were more vigilant than theirs. He looked at the young man in the ancestral hall with fear and said in a low voice, "A new god? God?" Miroku and the others were stunned. They wondered if they had heard it wrong. The demon actually called this Konoha shinobi a god? Are you surprised? Nara Shintaku also closed the last history book at this time, looked up and smiled. "Aren't you a god yourself?" Wow! It was like a stone that caused 1,000 waves. Miroku and the others were in uproar. What are you talking about, this Konoha ninja? How could the demon be a god? If it was a god, why would it attack us? The witch Miroku couldn't help but change color. She stared at Nara and asked, "Mr. Ninja, are you serious? It seems that you have forgotten history." Nara glanced at them and shook his head. One side is the descendant of the gods, and the other side is the former subordinate gods. The two sides who should have been in the same camp turned against each other. If the owner of Osawa Shrine is still here, I wonder how she would feel when she sees this scene? What? Miroku and the others were shocked. They couldn't believe their ears. What is this Konoha shinobi talking about? Descendants of God? Lord Miroku is a descendant of God? Impossible. Ghosts can't be from God. Osawa Shrine has always been the shrine of the shrine maidens of the land of demons. How can it be related to a ghost? Mr. Ninja, please don't talk nonsense. The guards and maids refuted repeatedly. They didn't notice that Miroku, who should have refuted the most, changed his face slightly and said nothing. As a shrine maiden, Miroku had studied the historical materials of the shrine in depth. Those historical materials implied that ghosts and Osawa Shrine had a special relationship. Before, she didn't take it to heart. At most, she was a little confused. But now, Nara Shintaku's words confirmed this point. This made Miroku very confused. Could it be that my power and chi may have the same origin? Her eyes changed rapidly. In the ancestral hall, Nara Shintaku ignored everyone's rebuttal and looked at Chime with a smile. I'm surprised that in this era, there are still people who have completed the path of cultivation and successfully become gods. Chime avoided Nara Shintaku's question and said, "Your talent, if placed 1,000 years ago, would probably be among the top 10. If that tree hadn't arrived, it would only be a matter of time to become a main god. But unfortunately, you were born in this era." Then the demon threw out its tentacles, like stone pillars, and smashed towards Nara Shintaku. Whoosh! The air whistled. But before the tentacles touched Nara Shintaku, they were bounced off by a layer of golden barrier. Great Light Ksidagarba Taijia Mandala. The power of the barrier rebounded to the tentacles, forming a golden flame, but it was extinguished instantly before it began to burn. The power is well developed. The demon praised lightly, and shook its tentacles, shaking off puddles of purple-black mucus. Gurgle. These black mucus turned into small demons and shot towards Nara Shintaku. Bang bang bang. Dozens of small demons hit the mandala barrier, causing it to shake. At the same time, puddles of purple-brown liquid would be left on the bodies of the small demons, corroding and melting the barrier. But is your combat experience comparable to mine? The demon's eyes flashed, and the tentacles of its body suddenly entangled together and merged into a huge flower. Pop! Purple-black flowers bloomed in the ancestral hall, releasing dark mist. The moment these mists appeared, the power of the entire ancestral hall was eroded and transformed into depravity, evil, rigidity, and deep negative characteristics, and all living creatures would be eroded. Be careful, Lord Miroku. The guards protected Miroku and retreated. These mists must not reach. Look there. That mouse lost its life immediately. Someone pointed to a corner. Miroku and others looked over and saw several mice running in panic, and they lost their lives the moment they came into contact with the mist. The plump flesh and blood also became dry and thin. At the same time, a strange red light appeared in the mouse's eyes. It seemed to be transformed into a monster controlled by demons. In the ancestral hall, Nara Shintaku looked down at the corner of his clothes. This power actually eroded his body and corroded the corner of his clothes. So that's how it is. Your original body is a strange bug, so the body you inhabit now can exert the power of your own attributes. Nara Shintaku nodded and said, "You?" The demon was shocked that his state was seen through. "I didn't expect that you were so weak that you needed to use the fabricated body and soul to exert your power to a certain extent.
Nara Shintaku looked at him indifferently.
Now, it's not even 1% of your heyday. Boom! The demon's face changed drastically as if struck by lightning. Whoosh! He manipulated the flower condensed by the tentacles, CCBH, and aimed at Nara Shintaku, shooting a purple-black light ray. This ray was full of the breath of withering, decaying, and decaying. It was as if death had come in person. Any living creature touched would lose its life directly and fall into a state of death. But Nara Shintaku just glanced at it indifferently. Hiss! A blazing white light lit up, like a sun emerging, and the ancestral hall was illuminated. The atmosphere of holiness, purification, light, and healing filled the surroundings. The purple-black rays disappeared instantly. The surrounding eroding fog also disappeared, and the light area was inverted. DBU. In the light, the demon seemed to be roasted, and its huge body melted little by little. It turned into smoke and drifted away. You. The demon was horrified, and his eyes were unbelievable. You are actually a god with the attribute of saintliness? Why didn't I feel it at the beginning? As a restraining attribute, I should have noticed it at the first time. Puff! Nara Shintaku waved his arm, and the blazing white light fell like a waterfall, extinguishing the demon into nothingness. In an instant, there was only a twisted and misty purple-black substance left on the spot. Outside the ancestral hall, a guard said in surprise. Others also showed shocked expressions. So fast? Konoha's ninjas are so strong. Lord Miroku, the demon country is saved. The guards and maids were delighted. But Miroku didn't laugh. She looked at the purple-black substance on the spot, her expression still solemn, and thought to herself, Shime, I'm afraid she's not dead yet. As expected. The next moment, the purple-black substance made a sound. It's useless. As gods, you should understand that the destruction of the body can't really hurt us. Even if the attribute is restrained, you can't kill me. What? The guards and maids who were delighted suddenly froze. Shime is still alive? He's not dead yet? Impossible, his body has melted. Everyone couldn't believe it. Only Miroku sighed secretly, thinking that it was indeed the case. I don't think so. Nara Shintaku smiled at the purple-black substance, raised his hand and grabbed it, and time and space shifted. Before Miroku could react, he was transferred into the shrine. He appeared in front of Nara Shintaku. Isn't your weakness obvious? Nara Shintaku put a hand on Miroku's shoulder and said to Shime. Shime said nothing and fell into silence. Miroku-sama. Konoha's ninja, what are you going to do? Let go of Miroku-sama. The guards and maids were shocked. In just a blink of an eye, how could Miroku fall into Nara Shintaku's hands? One guard couldn't bear it, suddenly drew his sword and rushed into the shrine. But the strange thing was, no matter how he ran, he couldn't get close to the shrine. It was as if an invisible gap was separated inside and outside the shrine, which could not be crossed. This was Nara Shintaku, and the distance in time and space was lengthened. Ninja-sama, what do you need me to do? Miroku looked calm and said to Nara Shintaku. You are quite calm. Nara nodded in appreciation and said, you don't need to do anything, just give me your power. While speaking, Nara Shintaku pressed the back of her shoulder, and the star-shaped lines lit up. A usurping power was revealed. Miroku frowned instantly. She felt an invisible big hand reaching into her body, and something deep in her body was grabbed and pulled out. That was the power in her blood. It was also the master of the Osawa Shrine, the once great and noble essence. This essential power can absolutely suppress the subordinate gods. Just like the Magma Man punched through the chest of the Flame Man, it was the absolute suppression of the superior power over the inferior power. Stop. The demon was not calm. He didn't expect Nara Shintaku to be able to seize the divine power in the priestess's blood. Swoosh. The demon flashed suddenly, crossed the space, and came in front of Nara Shintaku. For gods, manipulating time and space is a simple skill. Boom. The purple-black substance pierced Nara Shintaku like lightning. The moment of contact. Nara Shintaku's human form collapsed, likening it to the clear light of the essence. One purple-black, one clear light. Two extremely high essence forces collided in the most primitive way. Boom. The power of the gods violently dissipated and rushed to the surroundings. In an instant,
The ancestral hall was divided into two, and on one side, all kinds of dazzling moves such as mist, sword light, lightning, flames, giant beasts, time and space, and barriers flashed. It was as if masters of different fields attacked at the same time. On the other side, it was deep and profound, and things quickly withered and died.
What a joke! A guard turned pale, frightened by the fierce scene in the ancestral hall. Is this a god?
Just the aftermath of the power is enough to kill us tens of thousands of times.
What should we do with Lord Mithraea? Their expressions became desperate. Bang!
The two forces stalemated for a moment, and the purple-black side was the first to bounce away.
Pa!
A ball of purple-black material fell to the ground and released its gas. As the mist surged, a huge body with one eye and multiple tentacles was restored. The witch Mithraea was intact, and was tightly protected by more than 10 tentacles.
On the other side,
the clear light turned into Nara Shintaku's figure appeared.
On both sides of the ancestral hall,
the original strange scene disappeared, but on the ground, ceiling, and walls, it left a deep mark. On Nara Shintaku's side, it was chopped by knives, roasted by fire, splashed by lightning, and melted and changed. On the Chime's side, the soil turned purple and black, and the material structure was completely eroded and transformed into a new material. If the power of the gods is fully released, it will permanently change the properties of an area.
For thousands of years. You obviously want to be the new owner of Osawa Shrine, but you are protecting her? Nara Shintaku looked at Chime in surprise.
Under the protection of the heavy tentacles.
Mithraea also showed a complicated expression and looked at Chime in surprise. Lord Mithraea? The people outside were stagnant. They also didn't expect that Chime would protect Mithraea. Episode 98, Transaction, the Priesthood of the God of the Dead. Two halves?
This is not a conflict. Chime stared at Nara Shintaku and said slowly, Osawa is dead. I just want to inherit his power and status.
I never thought of cutting off his bloodline. On the contrary, I will protect his descendants. Let his power continue to be passed on. Miroku's expression was even more surprised.
The conversation between Nara Shintaku and Chime surprised her.
I am a descendant of God?
The people outside the ancestral hall also showed shocked expressions.
Descendant of God? Chime is actually from God? What this Konoha shinobi said is true. Inside the ancestral hall, Nara Shintaku looked indifferent, looked at him lightly, and asked, So? I want to make a deal with you.
Chime's eyes were stern, and he said, Although I don't know what concept you sublimate, if I'm not mistaken, you need the power of other gods, right?
Nara Shintaku's expression was undeniable. Let Mithraea go, and ensure the continuation of the Osawa Shrine in the Land of Demons. In exchange, I can give you my power. Chime said.
I can't be tempted by this condition. Nara Shintaku stared at him. I will take away her bloodline power and gain more.
Miroku couldn't help holding his breath.
She realized that my research situation had changed.
This Konoha shinobi who came to support is now her enemy. Chime has become a friend instead. But if you kill me, you won't get my memory.
Chime's eyes did not change, and he said calmly, In this era when the path to becoming a god is cut off, you must need the shadow of the road ahead.
I have all these things in my memory. Moreover, the owner of the Osawa Shrine left something behind. That thing guarantees my current strength. I can give it to you.
Nara Shintaku was silent. This condition was enough to make him tempted. The experience of practicing in the realm of gods was exactly what he wanted. And the things left by the owner of the Osawa Shrine in Chime's mouth also made him tempted. If I guessed correctly, that thing should be.
Okay.
Nara Shintaku nodded and said, But it's not possible to protect the continuation of the Osawa Shrine.
At most, I can share his current achievements. As he said that, Nara Shintaku flicked his fingers and a ray of light popped out.
Chime did not hesitate and caught it with his tentacles.
In an instant.
Through the light, he understood the changes in all aspects of Konoha and the various technological achievements developed.
This.
The demon was greatly surprised. He did not expect that the god Nara Shintaku had found so many achievements on the road of chakra.
He pondered for a while. The demon nodded and said, Okay.
Then, the deal is done. Nara Shintaku stretched out his hand and grabbed.
Time and space were distorted.
The huge demon shrank rapidly and turned into a purple-black eye, falling into Nara Shintaku's hand.
Swish!
The star-shaped pattern on the back of Nara Shintaku's hand lit up.
It was taken.
The power of the purple-black eye was instantly extracted and entered Nara Shintaku's body, and was quickly analyzed by the concept of all things.
In an instant,
a large amount of information, understanding, experience, and memory surged into Nara Shintaku's mind.
Is this the case?
Nara Shintaku digested this information, and a look of surprise flashed in his eyes.
Crack!
After being drained of all its power, the purple-black eyes turned gray, as if petrified. Nara Shintaku let go of his hand. The petrified eyes fell to the ground, penetrated the soil, and fell all the way to a depth of tens of thousands of meters. All this happened extremely suddenly.
Maitreya couldn't help but widen his eyes.
The two gods suddenly reached a deal, and Chime suddenly disappeared.
It was so fast that she couldn't react.
That?
Chime, how is he? Maitreya couldn't help asking.
He lost his power, but he is not dead. It will take a long time to recover. Nara Shintaku looked at her and said lightly, it will probably take more than 10,000 years.
After that,
Nara Shintaku turned into a clear light, and the light flashed, and he disappeared.
The ancestral hall. It became empty in an instant. Huh? Maitreya looked surprised, thinking that he was leaving now?
He really didn't take away her blood power.
Lord Maitreya. The people outside the ancestral hall rushed in. Are you okay? Are you injured? I am guilty of failing to protect you.
The guards knelt on the ground with shame on their faces. The maids were also ashamed.
It's not your fault.
Maitreya comforted them, and his expression was slightly startled. She suddenly found that there was some unfamiliar information in her mind.
The road to the gods. This. Maitreya's heart was in turmoil.
The demon actually left her a complete set of knowledge on how to cultivate to become a god.
Outside the shrine,
the clay figurines, having lost the power of the demon, all stopped. Restored to their original dead clay. The immortal demon has stopped. One person discovered this and immediately shouted, "Everyone, the enclosure has stopped." The others were stunned for a moment and looked back. All the clay figurines all over the mountains and plains were frozen. The evil power on the clay figurines also disappeared.
It really stopped. Great, no need to run away. Is it Lord Maitreya who sealed the demon? Yes, Lord Maitreya must have successfully sealed the demon.
The people of the land of ghosts all cheered.
They ran towards the Osawa shrine happily.
The land of ghosts. East of the Osawa shrine, the abandoned tomb of the Sheep King in the Japanese film.
Nara Shintaku separated time and space, entered the interior of the cemetery, and saw a huge coffin. Osawa shrine, the master's grave? Nara looked at the coffin and sighed slightly.
The memory given to him by the demon was extremely rich, and it recorded in detail the battle with the local gods after the arrival of the sacred tree thousands of years ago. It was a man with 2 horns, calling himself Otsutsuki Ishiki. Controlling the monster named 10 Tails, it brutally devoured the gods on the planet and turned them into nutrients for cultivating chakra fruits.
The path of the gods is finally clear. Nara's eyes flashed with brilliance.
According to the memory of the demons, the local gods divide all beings into subordinate gods, true gods, living gods, and gods on the battlefield. Subordinate gods have divine power, but no concept of sublimation. Their attributes are attached to the concept of true gods, and become the derivative or deepening of the concept of true gods. The true gods sublimate their own concepts, resonate with the world, and practice the priesthood. According to this, I am only half a true god now.
Nara Shintaku murmured.
It is not absolutely necessary for the true gods to condense the priesthood, but condensing the priesthood will help build the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is the place where the power of God radiates. The rules of an area are all assimilated into the attributes of God. In the legends of the Hokage world, all kinds of special worlds, small space and time, etc., are actually the kingdom of God of a main god.
The same is true for the 3 holy places today.
However, the 3 holy places are not the real kingdom of God. It can only be said that it is an independent space with the potential to develop into a kingdom of God. After building the kingdom of God, the gods can modify the rules within the kingdom of God, calculate life and death, protect creations, and do all kinds of incredible things. This is the ultimate of the gods of the old times.
But the Otsutsuki clan is the realm of the gods above the gods.
A hint of surprise flashed in Nara's eyes. The kingdom of God is separated from the original world, forming a complete cycle inside, and can exist independently in any corner of the universe.
This is the realm of the gods above the gods. The Otsutsuki clan is in this realm.
Therefore, Otsutsuki's move 1,000 years ago was able to kill the immortal gods because it crossed a realm. No, it wasn't really killed. There are still many gods alive, and now, they have become Sage of Six Paths. No wonder Otsutsuki Kagaya gave birth to offspring. It is difficult for gods to give birth to offspring, but Otsutsuki Kagaya gave birth to two at once. It turns out that through giving birth, the will of the gods who failed to survive was expelled from the body. Nara Shintaku's expression was shocked. He didn't expect that there were so many secrets hidden behind the original plot. In the animated version of the plot, Otsutsuki Kagaya gave birth to Sage of Six Paths and Otsutsuki Hamura with a human. But in the original comics, Kagaya gave birth to a child because of everyone's blessing. This everyone's blessing is very suspicious. Now it seems that it was the will of the local gods. No wonder the Sage of Six Paths betrayed without hesitation and chose to stand on the side of the planet. Nara touched his chin and said to himself, wait, so, Otsutsuki Kagaya's betrayal may have been the work of this king of gods. The local gods couldn't beat Otsutsuki head-on, so they bewitched Otsutsuki Kagaya. Well, it's very likely. Nara nodded. He also thought of a hidden setting in the original work. The Otsutsuki clan cultivated 10 tails, and the chakra fruit they harvested was not swallowed immediately. Instead, it was sent back to the elders of the tribe for alchemy. This so-called alchemy is probably a procedure to completely eliminate the will of the gods. Without this procedure, the will of the gods still remains in the chakra fruit. Otsutsuki Kagaya had to expel the will of the gods from the body through reproduction and turned into Sage of Six Paths according to the memory of the demons. Sage of Six Paths is an aggregate of the remaining will of the gods. With the help of fate, they became Six Paths, sealed Otsutsuki Kagaya, and sorted out the destroyed natural environment for thousands of years. At the same time, the two reincarnations are a ritual. Indra's eyes represent the external chakra power, and Ashura represents the local power. According to Black Setsu, all the reincarnations of Indra are stronger. But in the Senju Hashirama generation, Senju Hashirama was stronger than Uchiha Madara. Nara Shintaku couldn't help but show an expression of admiration. Sure enough, Black Setsu was also a chess piece deliberately kept by Six Paths. The purpose of deliberately keeping Black Setsu was to guide the reincarnations to fight each other, constantly let Ashura reincarnate, gather the power of the people, and defeat the reincarnation of Indra. Finally, in the Senju Hashirama generation, the local power won. The chakra was completely tamed, and the will of Otsutsuki was clear, turning into a harmless energy. And the generation of Naruto and Sasuke was the final ceremony of completely clearing up and reaping the fruits of victory. The ritual product of ninja. There is no need for it to exist. Therefore, after the generation of Naruto, the era of ninja ended and the era of tattoos came. What an amazing secret! Nara sighed and said, how can the immortal gods die so easily? As a newborn god, I have hundreds of ways to avoid Otsutsuki. What's more, a god who has been entrenched on this planet for tens of thousands of years. Nara showed admiration. At the same time, he also deeply understood that Otsutsuki Kagaya was indeed a waste. He was used many times by the local gods, so stupid that he couldn't even beat his grandson's reincarnation, and was sealed for the second time as soon as he came out. If it were Nara, he would have been killed by a car accident. But the god's plan has nothing to do with me. Nara stopped thinking and looked at the coffin in front of him. He raised his hand and grabbed it. Time and space deformed. Time and space outside the coffin overlapped with the time and space inside the coffin. A stone statue with a blurred face was grabbed by Nara and surrounded by his hands. The moment the stone statue was in his hand, the surrounding energy shook violently. Some amazing law awakened in the stone statue, as if to transform the area of 1,000 miles into another world. A world of the dead. The master of Osawa Shrine, the god of the dead in his lifetime. This is the priesthood he left behind. The priesthood can be in any form and anything. The essence transcends the form and is the sublimation and embodiment of the concept. Nara Shintaku looked at the stone statue in his hand. It contains the path and accumulation of the god of the dead. Crack! Nara Shintaku squeezed it hard, and the clear light in his hand shone and merged into the stone statue king. Calculate. The stone statue suddenly shattered and turned into a deep black color, drifting out like smoke and fog. Then in an instant, it was swallowed by the clear light. In an instant. The information, power, understanding, experience, attributes, and even the mysterious concepts in the priesthood were all obtained by Nara Shintaku. Nara Shintaku closed his eyes. Sitting cross-legged in the air. All things turned at full speed, quickly analyzing the duties of the god of the dead.
Gradually,
a dark and misty crown with 2 gems inlaid on it appeared on Nara's head.
Osawa Shrine. In the palace.
Has the relief food been distributed?
Are there enough medicines? After the number of victims is counted, write a report for me. Maitreya arranged the reconstruction work in an orderly manner.
Her face was firm and her eyes were deep. After just a few days of not seeing her, she had an air of superiority, deep and unfathomable. This air was accompanied by an inexplicable sense of dignity and sacredness.
When facing Maitreya, the people below all felt awe.
Even the maid who was usually close to her trembled and did not dare to look Maitreya in the eye.
Is this the power of the gods?
Maitreya took in the expressions of the crowd and sighed in his heart. Just by developing some blood power, he had opened up a gap with ordinary people and created a huge gap. No wonder the gods and the legends all stand in the sky and overlook the earth. It turns out that as the power increases, everything will happen naturally.
But I don't regret it.
The power of the ancestors must not be cut off in my hands.
Miroku thought with a firm look in his eyes.
But in an instant, he became gloomy again.
In this era, it is too difficult to practice.
According to the information left by the demons, a descendant of a god like her should have naturally possessed powerful power when she reached adulthood. Compared to ninjas, at least 5 shadows are upgraded. But now, she has practiced for several days and has only increased her power a little. It may take a lifetime for other ninjas to reach the 5th Kage level.
Not enough time. Miroku frowned secretly, feeling anxious. The power of blood will decline from generation to generation even if one practices diligently.
Unless someone breaks through the boundaries and enters the level of a god, the bloodline crystal can be guaranteed not to be exhausted. Descendants of gods who break through the gods often become subordinate gods of the true gods. This is also one of the main sources of subordinate gods. But with Maitreya's qualifications, it is impossible for him to practice to become a god in this life. Even 1,000 years ago, there were very few descendants of gods who could become subordinate gods.
Not to mention the current era? Is that the only way?
Maitreya bit his lip and looked at the window beside him with a complicated expression. To be precise, he looked in a certain direction outside the window.
10 kilometers away in that direction. There is an ancient tomb group.
In the center of the tomb group, there is a tomb of the owner of the Osawa Shrine. The demon left a message, telling her that her ancestors left a lot of things there. The most important thing was traded to the Konoha Shinobi.
In addition, there are many things that the gods don't like, but Maitreya can use.
Episode 99, Dedicating Your Body and Soul to Become a Subordinate to God. But those things are not important.
What is important is that Konoha Shinobi. Shimei said that I can try to become his subordinate god. Maitreya's expression became gloomy. According to Shimei,
under normal circumstances, the attributes and paths between the main god and the subordinate god are required to be consistent. As a descendant of a god, it is impossible for her to become a subordinate god of another god.
But that Konoha Shinobi is very special. His attributes and concepts seem to be all-encompassing and boundless, and can accommodate all paths and attributes. In other words, any existence with a cultivation path and cultivation attributes can serve as a subordinate of that Konoha Shinobi. Maitreya can naturally do it. Becoming a subordinate god is a good choice.
Maitreya nodded, thinking to himself, even 1,000 years ago, there was not one person in 100 million who cultivated to become a god by his own strength.
What's more, in this era,
if I don't rely on a god, relying on my own strength, after 3/5 generation people, the power of my bloodline will be exhausted and disappear.
This is something Maitreya cannot accept. The education she received since childhood was to pass on the power and duties of the Osawa Shrine and the Shrine Maidens.
This has become her life goal.
At present, it seems that joining the Konoha Shinobi is the best choice. Maitreya thought of this, and his eyes became firm.
Neither she nor Shimei thought that joining the gods and becoming a subordinate god was an insult.
Quite the contrary. This is a great opportunity. How many people are eager to share the glory of the gods but cannot? In the message left by Shimei, she even encouraged her to strive for it. Because the owner of the Osawa Shrine has disappeared, even Shimei, the subordinate god, has to find a new way out. I just don't know if he thinks highly of me. Maitreya sighed. She got up and walked into the room and closed the door. Standing alone in front of the floor-length mirror, Maitreya looked at himself in the mirror, hesitated for a moment, and went to the sun with a bloated and wide white robe. Under the white robe is a close-fitting lining.
The beautiful figure with curves and curves is reflected in the mirror.
I am still somewhat confident about my appearance. Miroku looked at himself in the mirror, raised his head and chest, and turned around from time to time. The woman in the mirror was outstanding and graceful. Her white neck was as slender as a swan, her waist was slender, and her body was full, which could be called a slender branch with fruitful results. A pair of plump white legs, long and straight, with perfect leg shape, without a trace of fat. Wearing a bloated and loose robe on weekdays, it is impossible to tell that Miroku has such an excellent figure. It's just that figure and appearance are not important to gods, right? Miroku was a little distressed and worried.
She had no confidence in becoming Nara Shintaku's subordinate god.
There are thousands of beautiful women in the world.
If she hadn't inherited the power of God and commanded the land of demons and Osawa Shrine at the same time, she would not have had the confidence to even walk in front of Nara Shintaku.
Never mind, let's try it first.
Miroku patted his smooth face and calmed his mind. She turned around to take a bath and change clothes.
After washing,
she changed into a clean shrine maiden's clothes and walked out.
You, Miroku-sama?
The close maid was shocked and asked quickly, have you decided?
Yes. Miroku, who was dressed in a shrine maiden's clothes and had a pure temperament, nodded solemnly, send me to the tomb group.
The maid bit her lips tightly and felt sad. In her opinion, Lord Miroku sacrificed himself for the people of the land of ghosts.
That Konoha shinobi was too strong and was already a god.
Even the terrifying ghosts and gods like Chime were easily killed.
In order to protect the Osawa Shrine, Lord Miroku had to sacrifice himself and begged the Konoha shinobi for magnanimity.
Yes.
The maid choked with grief.
After bowing to Maitreya, he turned around and walked away quickly to prepare for his trip to work. Miroku looked at her in silence, knowing that they had definitely misunderstood something.
However, Miroku did not explain. Because, those who surrendered to Konoha shinobi and invited outsiders to take over the Osawa Shrine.
This behavior was no different from ceding land and begging for mercy in the eyes of the people of the ghost country. As the leading shrine maiden, she would naturally be added with stories such as feeding the devil with her body.
Miroku had no way to explain. Should he tell the people below that the god of Osawa had died a long time ago and he was going to find a new support for the ghost country? In this case, the people below would not believe it. That's it.
Miroku sighed softly, without stopping the suspicion and discussion of the people below.
At the same time, in the tomb group,
there was silence, and the cold and deep breath filled the air, turning the area of 1,000 meters into a dead area.
Life seemed to disappear from it. Desolate, deep, and dead. There were no living things, even neutrons avoided this area far away.
The sunlight from the sky fell, and when it shone on this area, it seemed to dim a little. And the light became pale and cold, and lost its temperature.
The god of the dead?
Inside the tomb group, Nara opened his eyes, and the stone statue in his hand had turned into powder and drifted away.
The power of the priesthood was completely taken away by him.
What a powerful god! Today's Pure Land is actually his former kingdom of God. Nara sighed, muttering, even the Shinigami of the Uzumaki mask is a spirit body transformed from a trace of power left by his former life.
Have gods of this level fallen? The Otsutsuki clan should not be underestimated. Nara sighed softly. It's not that the Otsutsuki people are strong.
It's that this clan is born with powerful power and is a clan of gods.
What Nara was afraid of was a certain ancestor of the Otsutsuki clan, when the clan mentioned a certain strong man of the god clan.
However, they will not arrive until a long time later.
Don't worry too much. Focus on the present first. Nara reached out and took off the soul crown on his head. On the left side of the crown, there was a dark gem inlaid on it.
The appearance of priesthood varies, all depending on the will of the gods.
Nara directly forged the soul crown into his own priesthood. This dark gem is the priesthood left by the owner of the Osawa Shrine.
After being refined by him, it became the gem on the crown.
The god of the dead. Nara stared at the dark gem and whispered, the owner of the Osawa Shrine is called the god of the dead. He is a natural god, born from the breath of the dead, the natural king of the dead. His path and power are very simple. There is only one, that is, to dominate the dead. This kind of domination. It is not the forced suppression of power, nor the coercion of secular authority. It is the absolute domination in terms of rules and status.
For all the dead, their life skills, emotions, memories, will, strength, life and death, beliefs, etc. are all controlled by the god of the dead.
And everything in the world is either alive or dead. This god of the dead is equivalent to controlling half of the world. He can be called the king of half the world. If the world can be swallowed up, the kingdom of God will abolish the planet and turn it into the kingdom of the dead, or sublimate the opposite concept of life and merge into the God of life and death. Then the God of the dead will be promoted to the level of God above God. Unfortunately, both of these paths are difficult to achieve.
Nara Shintaku sighed slightly. Because these two paths are equivalent to turning all living beings into their own believers, and turning gods into their own subordinate gods and holy spirits. They will inevitably be resisted and hostile by other gods. Therefore, the God of the dead was born for more than 10,000 years, but he has not been able to break through the realm of God above God. It can be seen how difficult it is.
However, it is much simpler for me.
Nara Shintaku narrowed his eyes, because in this era, there are no powerful gods anymore.
In other words, this is a blue ocean.
Moreover, my path does not need to devour the entire world, and will not cause fierce resistance from fate. At the same time, there are many powers of gods from the old times left on the earth.
These are my resources, which can help me accumulate quickly. At this point, Tsuruga Shintaku couldn't help but click to buy.
For him, now is the best time.
Suddenly, Nara Shintaku's face moved and he looked in the direction outside the group. In his perception,
a team from the Kingdom of Demons, escorting the priestess Miroku, walked towards him.
What does this mean? Nara Shintaku raised his eyebrows in confusion.
His deal with Chime was over.
Konoha also sent a message to inform the past.
Various research and development results of the technical department will be gradually released to the Kingdom of Demons, and provided to the Kingdom of Demons in a mostly free and a small part paid way.
Outside the Toon Group,
the team of the Kingdom of Demons accompanied the Toon Group.
Let's stop here. Miroku, wearing a bloated robe, walked down the sedan chair.
Lord Miroku. In the back, a group of guards and maids all showed expressions of pity. They looked at Miroku, who walked into the Toon Group alone, as if they were looking at a poor man who sacrificed himself to feed the tiger.
Lord Miroku has sacrificed too much for this country.
Damn it, it's all our fault for being incompetent.
I have no face to return to Osawa Shrine.
The guards were ashamed.
Letting the master sacrifice himself is a manifestation of incompetence for the subordinates.
But facing the powerful power of the gods, ordinary people like them can't do anything. Miroku sighed faintly, without looking back, and went straight into the cemetery.
The destination is underground.
There is a passage opened up. As soon as she entered the passage, Miroku took off the bloated robe outside, wearing only a shrine maiden's costume, and walked into the core area with light steps. As soon as she entered, her expression changed slightly, and she sensed the death breath inside, which was like the world of the dead. And the center of the breath of the dead. It was Nara Jinja, whose momentum was as deep as the abyss and unfathomable.
Lord! Miroku stepped forward quickly and bowed.
The thin shrine maiden's clothes are extremely close-fitting, outlining her beautiful figure. At the same time, because the fabric of the shrine maiden's clothes is thin, nothing can be worn inside, and the same is true for kimonos.
Because when you walk, the outline of the clothes inside will be outlined. This is a kind of disrespect.
But in Nara Shintaku, there is nothing inside, but it is even more astringent. When Miroku bowed, he could clearly see the outline and traces of Miroku himself.
What's the matter?
Nara Shintaku glanced at her and was surprised to find that the body and mind of the shrine maiden actually exuded a pure and flawless atmosphere.
As if it was an uncultivated treasure land, smooth and delicate. Nico? Nara thought about it and felt it was normal. The profession of shrine maiden is to serve the gods.
People who served as shrine maidens in the past generations either had a special relationship with the gods, such as couples, spokespersons, descendants, etc. Or, the shrine maiden herself was a sacrifice to the gods.
Since it is a sacrifice, it must be pure. Please forgive my offense.
Maitreya bowed and stood up, took a deep breath, and said, I will serve you and serve you at all times.
Why? Nara's face was indifferent. If you are worried about the transaction, you can rest assured. I will arrange the things promised to the demon. F.O. Maitreya shook his head, looked at Nara seriously, and said sincerely, it is my personal request.
The demon told me that without the help of the gods, the blood power I inherited will be exhausted after the third and fifth generations, and I will become an ordinary person.
So what? Nara raised his eyebrows.
I hope to join you and become your follower, and pass on the power in my veins.
Maitreya said seriously. Nara Shintaku was stunned.
This was the first time he had heard such a novel reason.
Do you know what it means to be a follower? Nara Shintaku asked. Yes.
Mithraea nodded and answered in a serious tone, the demon told me that the Holy Spirit is the spokesperson of the gods, and the follower is the practitioner and pioneer of the path of the gods. Did the demon tell you that to become a follower, you need to devote your body and mind?
Nara Shintaku interrupted. Ah. Mithraea was stunned and opened his mouth in disbelief.
If you don't believe in me from the bottom of your heart and practice my path, you can't become my follower at all. Nara Shintaku looked at her indifferently and said, and if you believe in me from the bottom of your heart, your body and mind will be owned by me.
Mithraea's expression was sluggish.
She had never expected that becoming a follower would have such a price.
Why didn't the demon say it?
Wait, for the demon, physical and mental belief doesn't seem to be a problem at all.
Naruto couldn't help but purse his lips, his expression hesitant. She originally just wanted to invite Nara Shintaku to take over the Osawa shrine. I never thought that it would cost such a price. For a long time.
Miroku's expression became firm, and she said decisively, please, let me be your subordinate god. In her heart, passing on the power of bloodline is the first priority.
No matter what the price, you have to do it.
I can't make you a subordinate god immediately, and I can't do it, I will only give you one chance.
Whether you can cross the boundary between human and god depends on you. Nara Shintaku said indifferently. That's enough, sir. Miroku bowed deeply. Well, let's start the ceremony now, Nara Shintaku's voice came. Ceremony? What ceremony?
Before Miroku could react, she felt a big hand on her head.
No need to look up, just kneel like this. An hour later.
Miroku's face flushed, his steps were unsteady, and he walked out of the tombs. Everyone, Master Shintaku has agreed to my request, and will soon enter the Osawa shrine to accept the worship of the land of ghosts.
You can go back without worry.
Miroku said with heavy breathing. She seemed very tired. But she was in high spirits, her eyes were bright and full of brilliance. She also had a bit more feminine charm. It seemed that in just a short time, she had grown from a young girl to a woman.
Master Miroku.
Several maids looked at each other with dim eyes. They all saw what Miroku had experienced.
Master Miroku, are you not going back? Asked a guard.
I am already Master Shintaku's priestess, and as a priestess, I naturally have to serve Master day and night.
Mithraea said solemnly. It is impossible to think wrongly. But in fact, what happened in the tomb group just now made Mithraea ashamed and angry. This god is definitely not serious.
I am afraid that her future service will become real worship.
We understand, do you need to send daily necessities? The guards were deceived by Mithraea's solemn expression and asked normally.
In their opinion, it is a tradition for priestesses to serve gods. The priestesses of all generations in the Ghost Kingdom have such activities.
It is probably something like saying good things and helping out?
Please help you. Mithraea smiled and said to the guards, paused, looked at the maids again, and waved to them.
A maid stepped forward in confusion. Lord Mithraea?
Go back and send all the priestesses' clothes in the palace.
Mithraea whispered. Episode 100. Battle for the Pure Land, War with the Sage of Six Paths. Just the Shrine Maiden's clothes? The maid was slightly startled, don't you need other clothes? Others are also needed, but not too many. The key is to have all the Shrine Maiden's clothes.
Mithraea emphasized, saying, if there are not enough 10 sets in the palace, make 10 sets of Shrine Maiden's clothes and send them to me.
Yes, the maid nodded in confusion. Mithraea did not explain, and sighed in his heart. Who made this unruly god like to tear the Shrine Maiden's clothes?
The Shrine Maiden's clothes and robes she was wearing now had been ravaged and could not be seen.
Nara Shintaku used his divine power to turn them into a new set. But we can't always let the gods spend their energy to do trivial things, right? Prepare for a rainy day. Mithraea could only ask people to send all the Shrine Maiden's clothes in her palace. Well, don't make this public.
Mithraea thought about it, and then said, if there are hunting clothes, bring me 5 sets of beds.
Hunting clothes?
The maid was even more confused.
Hunting clothes are clothes worn for sports hunting. But are there any animals that can be hunted in this tomb complex? Do you want to bring your longbow? The maid asked.
No, the hunting clothes are enough.
Mithraea shook his head. Yes. The maid nodded in confusion, completely unable to understand why Lord Mithraea wanted these things. Deep in the earth. An independent small world. Pure land.
This small world is dark, and countless souls of the dead are sleeping on the dry earth. Until the long years, the forms of these souls are erased.
Then, in the form of negative energy, they re-enter the world's reincarnation ministers. This reincarnation has been going on peacefully for thousands of years. Until today. Boom!
The dark, withered, and dead power accumulated in the Pure Land suddenly fluctuated, surging like a violent wave. Layer after layer of power fluctuations swept across the entire Pure Land. Countless sleeping souls were engulfed and melted into strange and powerful beings, looking up and roaring. These beings had different shapes, with fangs and horns. Like the ghosts in the legend, they bowed in a certain direction.
Relieve!
Suddenly a light shout spread throughout the Pure Land.
A gentle force fell, like a breeze, blowing through each evil ghost.
All the evil ghosts resisted.
The next moment,
they all collapsed into basic Yin energy and sank into the depths of the Pure Land. My control over the Pure Land suddenly dropped by 30%.
The owner of the voice just now appeared.
He was an old man with 2 small horns on his forehead, pale skin, purple eyes, and circles of water-like lines. He held a pitch-black tin staff in his hand and sat cross-legged in the air.
9 pitch-black balls were rotating under him. It was the legendary Sage of Six Paths. Did he sense the power of the old master?
Sage of Six Paths sat cross-legged in the sky, looking down at the vast Pure Land. He couldn't help but frown and said to himself, "But the god of the dead has completely fallen. Even his subordinate gods are struggling to survive, and most of their power has been lost.
Who inherited the power of the god of the dead?"
Sage of Six Paths raised his head, and Rinnegan's eyes penetrated the boundary between the Pure Land and reality and fell into the world of the living. Instinctively, he looked at Yi Shi first.
Konoha was the place where he established the ninja sect and passed on his teachings when he was alive.
After his death, the descendants of Indra and Ashura, along with other descendants of the ninja sect, have been fighting in that area.
Although those descendants have forgotten the reason for their fight.
But the fight has never stopped. It has become part of the ritual of Indra and Ashura.
Why is Konoha like this?
It doesn't matter if you don't look at it, but when you look at it, the Sage of Six Paths is immediately shocked.
Konoha now.
Almost 90% of the ninjas have the blood power of the Senju clan.
Although most of them are very weak, they do have it. What's going on?
The Sage of Six Paths looked astonished.
Even if Ashura's descendants cast a wide net, coupled with the second Hokage's integration policy, so that the Senju bloodline is widely spread, it is not possible for everyone to awaken. Moonlight, Inuzuka, Aburame, Nara, Kurama. Where is your own blood power? Why is the blood concentration of the Senju clan so high? The direct descendants are catching up with Ashura's grandchildren.
The Sage of Six Paths was shocked.
Not only that, he also saw many Konoha shinobi practicing some novel beds. Blood armor technique. Flying sickle kick technique. Soul weapon forging technique. Tave. Sage of Six Paths. Forget about the blood armor technique that is too exquisite to be of this era. Forget about the flying sickle kick technique involving natural energy. But among the Jonin, is it too much for everyone to have a bloodline limit?
Sage of Six Paths can't help but turn their eyes to the beginning of the Change Technical Development Department.
Technical Development Department. In an office inside.
Hiroko, wearing a white coat and a photo of supervisor, looked down at a feedback on the use of Bloodline Limit Awakening Potion. Since the Bloodline Limit Awakening Potion of the Senju clan, the technical department has launched Magnet Style, Scorch Style, Ice Release, Storm Release, Lava Style, Boil Style, and many other awakening potions.
After the Jonin used it, 70% of them successfully mastered the corresponding bloodline limit. The remaining 30% also successfully mastered it after using the second awakening potion of the same type. In addition, the technical department also launched a customized service. Specially for the village's ninja clan, customized potions to strengthen their bloodline limit power. At present, except for the Hyuga clan, all ninja clans have purchased the service. Among them, the Uchiha clan has a high praise rate. 1/3 of them have successfully awakened Mangekyo Sharingan. Currently, the Uchiha clan has 27 pairs of Mangekyo.
Not bad, let the people below hurry up and push the potion to the market of other hidden villages.
I don't believe they can hold back. Belu looked at the feedback report and signed his name readily.
Then, he looked at the ninja who came to report.
He casually asked, "Is the dust release potion eliminated by the bloodline almost ready?" "Yes."
The reporter puffed up his chest. "It has been tested on humans. Among the Jonin, 5 out of 10 can master dust release after using it for the first time."
Not bad data.
Dust release is more difficult, so it is normal that fewer people can master it.
Hiroko nodded. Sage of Six Paths looked at this conversation, and his mouth twitched. Dust release has been developed? This is too outrageous.
I just haven't seen it for a few years, not hundreds of years.
Sage of Six Paths said speechlessly. Then, his eyes fell on the current fourth Hokage of Konoha. Sage of Six Paths' mouth twitched even more. Sage. This fourth Hokage of Konoha is actually a sage. What a joke. Even thousands of years ago, sages were rare and had the potential to be promoted to gods. In this era that is no longer suitable for cultivation. How can someone cultivate to become a sage? And it's a brand new path, although there are some traces of Ryuchi Cave, the overall framework is a brand new path to sage. Sage of Six Paths looked at Orochimaru with an expression of admiration. Then, he retracted his gaze. He turned to look into the distance, at the tombs of the land of demons. That was the source of all the changes. A young man named Nara Shintaku. Sage of Six Paths stared for a long time, but found nothing. In his field of vision, the tombs were shrouded in a layer of mist, and the power of the Rinnegan was blocked outside, and he could not see at all. And, if he did not look for it on purpose, Sage of Six Paths would even subconsciously ignore the existence of the tombs. It seemed that there was a force that was reducing the sense of existence. No wonder I didn't notice it before, it turns out that there is a special concealment ability? Sage of Six Paths' eyes pondered. You have seized the priesthood left by the god of the dead, Nara Shintaku? You seem to want to collect more power from the gods? This will disrupt my arrangement. Sage of Six Paths' expression became serious. He had been preparing for many years, using the continuous reincarnation of his two sons as a ritual to eliminate the hidden dangers within the chakra, and at the same time, to eliminate Tsuchikage will. Finally, in the generation of Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara, we succeeded. Next, it is time to reap the fruits of victory. No one else can destroy it. You can't destroy the order I created. Sage of Six Paths said solemnly. Present world. Nara Shintaku suddenly had an idea and turned his head to look down. Miroku, who was kneeling in front of him, opened his beautiful eyes and showed a puzzled expression. You do your thing. Nara Shintaku touched her head and asked Miroku to continue serving. Miroku continued her daily service obediently. Nara Shintaku squinted his eyes and enjoyed it while thinking. The peeping feeling just now, was it Six Paths? I refined the priesthood of the god of the dead and felt a huge space, located underground, which was connected to the power of the god of the dead. That was the former kingdom of the dead, now the Pure Land. Nara Shintaku refined the priesthood and also got a lot of information about the god of the dead. The Pure Land was once his kingdom. After his death, it was transformed into a pure land for the dead by the Sage of Six Paths, a collection of God's will. I inherited the position of the god of the dead, so the kingdom of God should naturally belong to me. But the Sage of Six Paths will not give it up easily. So, we need to fight again. Nara Shintaku thought, stroking his chin. He and the Sage of Six Paths must fight, because he is incompatible with fate and is out of the plan. The Sage of Six Paths has been planning for thousands of years, using the reincarnation of two children as a ritual. Now it is only a matter of time before the harvest. In order to ensure the smooth completion of the plan, they will definitely try to eliminate the variable Narataku. This has nothing to do with position, it is just interest. Well, let's fight again. Nara Shintaku's eyes flashed with a fierce look. He knew that there would be no lack of fighting on the path of God. So he would not escape. When Osawa Shrine has built my statue, Konoha will send support, and I will go out to fight. Nara Shintaku nodded in his heart. As for now, he hugged the fragrant, soft, pure, and flawless Miko. Again? Miroku opened his eyes with difficulty, his face was full of sleepiness, and he didn't want to bend a finger. It's okay, you sleep, I'll hold you. Nara Shintaku said. Really? Miroku showed a suspicious look, stared at Nara Shintaku for several times, and then closed his eyes again half-believingly. She was too tired. She had to serve and practice every day. She didn't have enough physical strength. It's only been a few days, and she was so sleepy that she couldn't open her eyes. If it weren't for the divine power of the bloodline, Miroku would have collapsed from exhaustion. However, Miroku's distressed look, which was obviously trying hard to adapt but still not being able to do it, was also quite interesting. Nara Shintaku smiled and appreciated the different reactions of different girls. After refining the priesthood of the god of the dead, his concept has changed. He no longer sees the human body as an object that can be discarded at any time.
Instead, he sees it as an incarnation, a symbol. According to the understanding of the God of the Dead, gods are a powerful existence that spans countless dimensions. Therefore, at different levels, in different environments, and in different species. As long as the power of the gods radiates, different symbolic images will be born. Just like Zeus in Greek mythology, looking at the incarnations of symbols such as bulls, eagles, golden rain, and rams.
Nara Shintaku thought and breathed a sigh of relief.
Miroku stood up, covered his mouth with his white palm, and coughed painfully.
He was choked a little. After a while, she calmed down and looked at Nara with resentment. This improper god is really too much. He asked her to serve him 12 hours out of 24 hours a day. He doesn't look like a god at all, but like an unsatisfied sex-hungry ghost. Come.
Nara smiled and patted his thigh, motioning for Miroku to sit in his arms.
Maitreya sighed deeply, lowered his head in resignation, and walked over. 1 month later. The dust settled.
Nara Shintaku left the cemetery and stepped out. The surrounding time and space changed, and the deep and dark darkness surged.
He seemed to be falling. He kept falling towards the concept below.
In this process, Nara Shintaku found a bright land in the depths of infinite darkness through the connection of the power of the God of the Dead.
It was the Pure Land. Whoosh!
Nara Shintaku appeared above the Pure Land with the clear light.
The light shone.
The Sage of Six Paths noticed him as an outsider at the first time, and his figure flashed and appeared in front of Nara Shintaku, and said,
Nara Shintaku. You actually came to me on your own initiative? What a courage!
The Sage of Six Paths looked at Nara Shintaku in surprise. In his opinion, this new god was too late to hide from him.
How could he take the initiative to come to his door? But he didn't want to. Nara Shintaku actually took the initiative to come to the Pure Land and find him. No need to talk nonsense. Nara Shintaku looked at the Sage of Six Paths with a faint smile and said, I have learned everything I need to know from the priesthood of demons and the God of the Dead. Dali Zhao, let's do it. We are destined to have a fight. After saying this,
the Sage of Six Paths was slightly stunned, and they did not expect Nara Shintaku's decisiveness.
He could not help but remain silent. For a while.
Sage of Six Paths nodded heavily and said in a deep voice, That's right, then come on.
The two attacked at the same time. Bad wind. Sage art.
The energy around Nara Shintaku collided violently in an instant, turning into a terrifying energy storm, blowing towards Daoxianmen with a breath of crushing everything. Sage of Six Paths waved his tin staff, and the natural energy and chakra were perfectly integrated to form 7 types of ninjutsu, including yin, yang, wind, earth, fire, water, and thunder. Thousands of ninjutsu were released at the same time in the area.
Boom!
The power of both sides collided with everything. The bad wind shattered the ninjutsu, and the ninjutsu pierced the bad wind.
Annihilation. Shock. Crush.
The moves of the two seemed to divide the Pure Land into 2 worlds. One side was the 7 colors of ninjutsu light, and the other side was the storm of nothingness. The 2 worlds continued to erode each other, but they could do nothing. In the end, they could only consume each other's power.
The center of the battlefield.
Nara Shintaku and Sage of Six Paths looked at each other calmly. I am surprised at your proficiency in divine power. Sage of Six Paths' eyes flashed with a strange color, and there was a hint of surprise and doubt in his voice.
It's just basic power. Nara Shintaku smiled faintly. But outside the two of them, the collision of bad wind and sage art set off a terrifying shock wave. The shock wave surged to all corners of the Pure Land like a tidal wave. What's going on?
Countless dead souls were awakened, looking at the shock wave sweeping from afar in horror.
Where is this? Aren't I dead? Is it the world after death? Wait, there are strong people fighting. What a terrible aftermath, it almost tore me apart from such a distance. Countless dead souls fled in fear. Most of the dead souls are ordinary creatures and ordinary humans.